All right, guys. Well, I guess I'll get started. So, my name is Noel Turlington, and I'm the current president of Blockchain in Colombia. And we have a really strong panel of recent alums from Blockchain in Colombia here today. Um, I'll let them introduce themselves and talk about what they're currently doing in crypto. So, if Near, if you don't mind starting us off.
Hey everyone, I'm Nir. I was president of Blockchain at Columbia about 3 years ago. I currently run a startup called Yup. It's a Web3 social network focused on curation. I do a lot of angel investing in the space, and I've participated in a few funds as well. Yeah, super excited, super heartwarming to see all this come together and to see you all here. So glad to do this.
Hey everyone, I'm Sam. I am the co-founder and CTO of Slide. We're building a bunch of infrastructure to make Web3 really effortless and as effortless as Web2. We've raised from Polychain, Framework, Coinbase, a lot of like the top funds in the space. We did our PR announcement a few weeks ago, and we are launching soon, so that's very exciting. I was the head of technical R&D a few years ago when Nir was the president of blockchain at Columbia. So it is kind of cool to see this come full circle and like be back here now.
Hey everyone, I'm Arian. I was part of the team that created the club back in 2017, but I do have to say that the club as it looks today is very different, and most of that work goes to Nia and Alex. So honestly, props to them for getting the club to where it is today. I now work at CMT Digital, where I'm an investor and the head of research.
I'm Alex. I work at Jump now as a researcher, kind of doing a mixture of kind of broad like blockchain theory research and then some R&D. And I graduated actually this past spring, where I ran blockchain at Columbia for around 2 years.
So, Alex, as you're a recent graduate, you have already talked about your path leaving blockchain in Columbia. But if each of you could talk about your experience, when did you graduate, and what is your journey been as you've moved into the crypto space?
I can definitely go. So I was already in crypto when I arrived on campus at Columbia, kind of very interested in that space as a whole. At the time, there was a group of students who were doing blockchain research out of the organization called Core at Columbia that Ariane was a part of. And initially, me and the few other people that were into crypto that were on campus were not really involved with that group, kind of doing our own thing. And so when we spun that out into a full-on student club of its own as Blockchain at Columbia, the real goal for me was to make sure that the really smart, talented people who are working on individual things on campus or outside of campus, but were students, were really drawn to the club and could participate. So, I think a lot of student organizations on campus are really focused about like spreading awareness, education, the kind of more administrative stuff around running a club. And I think we took a slightly different approach, which was more about giving the space and the platform for individuals to pursue what they're interested in and to research that. And I think we did a really good job around that, and a lot of amazing sort of founders and creators that are now full-time in Web3 and sort of leaders in the industry were part of the organization, and not necessarily kind of participating from an administrative standpoint, but getting a lot of support from the group for the things that they're working on. And so for me, that was really exciting. I can definitely say at the time, crypto was very new or felt very new on campus, and there wasn't a lot of people who were sort of working in it or interested in it. But it was also a great opportunity to kind of develop an expertise in the space. At the time when there wasn't a lot of sort of institutional signals around crypto, being an organization on Columbia's campus held a lot of weight. And even as students, we were able to do a lot of incredible things that I think student organizations and other fields didn't have that opportunity, just because of timing and sort of the role we played in what was happening in the New York crypto scene. I think for me, really, the more that I went deeper in the space, the more that I took the opportunity to really understand the technology while I was on campus, the better I felt prepared when I graduated and sort of continued working in the space. So I'd say in general, like I wouldn't be in crypto if it wasn't for Columbia, if it wasn't for blockchain at Columbia today, and certainly not at the level I am and so on. So I really owe all of that to the organization.
I think I personally owe a lot to Near and what was built out like blockchain at Columbia, because I wasn't super into crypto or even knew about crypto before arriving at Columbia. I was really into computer science in my early teens, but it wasn't until I met Near and some of the other members of blockchain at Columbia that I started kind of like going down the rabbit hole in crypto. I remember it was a couple of years ago now. It was probably one of like the first LedgerFest that I had been talking to Near and other people that were part of it, and they said, "Oh, come through LedgerFest. There'll be a bunch of like great speakers," and that was very different than what it was today, where it was in like a small auditorium in Columbia. Now we have this like really incredible space that like Noel and everyone is able to put together. But that was one of like my first experiences actually getting into crypto, seeing a lot of like the experts in the space and being able to like really dive down the rabbit hole. And like from there, I didn't really look back. Where I started like building a lot in the space. I started actually spending a lot more time building in crypto than I was on like my actual schoolwork, which led me to drop out in late 2019 and keep building in the space. From there, I built like a decentralized blogging platform that got like modest traction in like crypto Twitter. I ended up being working as a tech lead for an NFT marketplace for a little bit. That was venture backed. That was backed by Mechanism Capital. I worked at Polychain, Poly Market, is a blockchain engineer for a little bit. And it was actually John Itzler, who was a member of blockchain at Columbia, that introed me to Shane, the founder of Poly Market, after they had raised their seed round. And I ended up like joining them as a result. And then after Poly Market, I ended up taking my learnings from there and like the NFT marketplace and the other learnings that I had and founding Slide.
When I joined Columbia, I was already in blockchain. I started doing blockchain around 2016, 2017 from a research point of view, the Blockchain Research Institute. But it's just been incredible to see how the interaction with blockchain technology, whether it be research or development, has changed over the years. The first meeting that we had in 2017, when it was just an idea and we were trying to figure out how many people were interested, the room in the mathematics building, when you go in and it's on the right, it's like the big one, that was completely packed. And then crypto winter hit and like maybe 10 people would show up. So it's awesome seeing how the technology's matured and how the club's matured. And yeah, Nia and Alex and Noel, like part of the originating lineage that really will continue and see more developers and blockchain advocates come out of Columbia. And I think it's a good organization, and you can either take it and do what many have done and create startups, or you can go and join the institutional route. But the beauty of it is that there's a centralized entity where you can learn from experiences and lean on the experiences of alumni, and don't be afraid to reach out for introductions generally and to use that network.
Yeah, it's funny, actually, freshman year, I remember going like in the club fair. I'd heard about crypto, I think, in high school, but I thought it was sort of scammy just based off the person who had told me about it. But then I think I talked to Nir actually at the club fair and told me about Blockchain Columbia. It sounded pretty interesting, and started getting involved really, I guess, yeah, my freshman year, going to some events, just seeing how a lot of people actually like doing stuff in the space beyond just being a participant in the club. Because like for most clubs, I think in general, you don't have that much leverage. You're kind of competing with people who've either like been in the field for many years, have a ton of funding. As your like student club, obviously it's a bit constrained, but I think crypto is unique, and Blockchain Columbia as well, in the sense where you actually can have a lot of leverage and impact just as a student. Like you can be a freshman, for example, and start publishing research, contributing to a protocol, like working on your own side project, and get noticed and be able to start talking to basically leaders in the space within, I don't know, span of like a few months. But yeah, it was interesting. So now I'm taking over the club. Senior graduated during the pandemic. So we kind of were battling with like, how do we get people to come to these online events? What's the kind of the broad impact the club can make? And I think we really try to center it around one, creating kind of a community and hub for crypto on campus, but also trying to find a way to really easily onboard people into the space. So this actually ended up culminating in creating the first student DAO, which we ended up launching as sort of a way, one, to bring new people into the space by actually engaging in a club in a crypto native way. So like token weighted voting, for example, but also supporting students, however, in whichever way they actually wanted to contribute to the space. So we launched a little grant program where people could work with blockchain research, they could contribute to like club events through marketing, et cetera, pretty broad, but just kind of going back to this sort of general goal, I think the organization back then, as well as now, to be welcoming for new people in, I think, crypto or blockchain in general, but also providing enough resources and support and connections for those who might already be in the space and want to really make a serious impact.
Thank you. Thank you. So you mentioned many of you when you were getting involved and when you were students at Columbia, the aspect that like crypto was in a bear market or it wasn't very popular. And now we've had a lot of hype and excitement, and there's the potential, maybe we already are in a pretty deep bear market. What advice would you give to students that are maybe enthusiastic or they're curious, they want to get involved, but they are a little uncertain, they've heard about all these scams? What advice would you give them?
Yeah. First of all, I think that the best work is done in a bear market. So I would certainly take the opportunity to not only build, but also educate yourself. I think the best thing you can do while you're still on campus is learn, as weird as that sounds, but specifically around Web3, crypto, and the technology. I think really having the time to focus on those things and learn them at a deep level and really try to be as much of an expert as you can while you're on campus, I think is a very smart move. Life moves very fast when you're an adult and you're not on campus and you have a full-time job and so on and so forth. I think it's a bit harder. The other one would be to kind of surround yourself with like-minded people. When I was on campus, all of my close friends were also in crypto. My best friend, who's also an alumni of BSC, is very deeply involved in the space. And so, that made it quite easy for me to just continue to be exposed to what was happening, continue to learn, continue to ask questions. So I'd really recommend just like being cautious of your circle, like the 5 people closest to you will really make a big difference there. As well as kind of the content you consume and so on and so forth. This is something I recommend to almost everybody is like, spend time on Twitter, spend time following the right Substacks, really learn and be exposed to what's happening in the space in real time is kind of the most important thing because it's moving so fast. So I would definitely recommend that. And then lastly is like reach out to individual professors and individuals on campus. The organization as a whole, most college campuses, certainly this applies to Columbia or universities, sort of have a lot going on and tend to be very lagging on supporting emerging tech. But that doesn't mean you should just sit on your hands and do nothing about it until the school provides enough courses or enough whatever. There's at least 10 incredibly important, talented, smart, expert professors on Columbia's campus that can teach you, that want to help, that can do research with you, and so on and so forth. We have one sitting right there, Omid, who's at the business school, who's very involved in the space, and there's a few others that are not only involved but like very instrumental to the early days of crypto. There's a crypto lab on campus. Aaron Tromer is a founding scientist of Zcash, is a professor on campus. So there's a lot of really, really interesting people that you should individually reach out to, even if they're not part of your undergrad program or in the grad school that you're in. In most cases, they'll really want to help you. And to what Ariane was saying, like also, don't be afraid to reach out for intros to any of us, anybody who's been in blockchain at Columbia or went to Columbia University. You'd be surprised how many of those people really want to support you. For example, when Alex was doing the Lion Fund, we were really shocked to have Chris Dixon participate in that, Ben Horowitz participate in that, Noah Zenmeister, who I think spoke today, right? Who's at Uniswap, just like really, really important people in the space who are Columbia alumni, do want to be involved, do want to support, and do want to give advice, connect you to the right people and so on. So take full advantage of that while you're still students, both on campus and with alumni.
I'd like to double click on one point that Nir mentioned about like actually really trying to go deep and become like an expert in what you're doing. There's a really big opportunity still in crypto that because it's such a nascent space that you can actually become an expert in something with like maybe a year or two of like deep study in it. And the next thing that I'll say is that what you should try to focus on is like what actually interests you. You don't want to try to go deep on something that doesn't actually interest you, that's going to be a really painful, like horrible experience that you're not going to enjoy. You want to actually find out what really interests you and then go deep on that. I think on that note, you really want to like try to avoid what's really popular in the space. And it often feels like when NFTs are really big, that you need to become like an expert in NFTs, or when DeFi is really rolling, that's like the hot thing that everyone wants to be an expert on. And it's really hard to actually try to follow your intuition and try to do what's actually natively interesting to yourself. And this is something that I just really kind of happened to do for a couple years, that I was just really interested in building consumer focused applications. I wasn't that interested in DeFi. I wasn't really interested in NFTs. I was really interested in like, how do you actually build technology to reach end users? And that led me to work at Polymarket, where I built a lot of infrastructure for actually abstracting away as much of the blockchain complexity as possible. And that's infrastructure that really no one else has that much expertise in. Like, I can say that I'm probably one of like 3 or 4 developers in the world that have actually like built infrastructure along these lines that has processed like 9 figures in volume. And I think one of the reasons why I'm building Slide is that I think like the infrastructure that we're building is a lot better too. And I mean, a lot of people look to experts and say that like, oh, I could never like do what they're doing. They have so much knowledge in like their specific space. But the one thing that you guys will probably find was when you really go deep on stuff, that you are able to bring unique insight that other people don't have. One thing that we're doing at Slide is because we're working on making it really easy to get money in and out of crypto. And specifically what we're doing right now is going direct to NFTs with a credit card, so that someone can just get to an NFT purchase page on like Uniswap or like another NFT marketplace, or I should say OpenSea or another NFT marketplace. And they're able to just like enter their credit card in a really seamless experience and get the NFT into their wallet. And one thing that we've had to do as a result is we had to work with a lot of like legal experts in the space. And you think that just because someone was a lawyer at Coinbase and got the MTLs for Coinbase back in 2013, and that they've been working in the space for a while, that they would be like the foremost expert. But the problem is that they don't actually have the insight into how the technology works on the hood. And while they're right 90% of the time, there's like the 10% chance that they actually like misread what you're talking about from a technology perspective or something along those lines, and actually really understanding the legal perspective of it, which is what like the entire like operations team at Slide is doing, gives us like an advantage to actually build it in a more efficient way that we haven't seen like other people like do this in terms of architecting their like partner agreements and the actual flow of funds, which is what like banks and payment processors care about, so that we can do it more efficiently than how other people have traditionally done it.
Yeah, I think to circle back on a few points that were made already, bear markets provide a really good opportunity for reconciliation of thoughts and ideas, especially in the space. And this is such a new technology. It's still, I mean, it's only been around. The Bitcoin white paper was created in 2008, and Ethereum wasn't created until 2000, I don't know, 14. There's going to be iterations on technology that we haven't seen yet. So don't be afraid to contribute. One of the problems that I had when I first started was I was always scared that what if the thoughts that I'm having or the design ideas that I'm having aren't accepted? And I think that it's a cancerous mentality, because the beauty of this technology is that you can contribute just through thought leadership, and the bear markets provide a avenue by which you can look at niches that you enjoyed looking into and see what worked, what didn't work, and try and figure out why, and try and iterate just on design principles off of that. And that's how the industry moves forward as a whole. So yeah, I think bear markets do provide the best time for not only building, but reconciliation of just ideas generally.
Yeah, then it also kind of like circling back to what Sam was saying about picking something you're actually interested in. I think a lot of people might say, oh, it's good to focus on like a side project or some personal project, but usually, like, unless you're actually interested in it, it's hard for you to really spend enough time where you're actually learning about it. I think like this applies more broadly to tech, but specifically for crypto, at least for me, like working on some side projects has been quite formative and actually I mean, yeah, when you're working on a project, you have a little bit of skin in the game, and you can either be building it, like if you're technical or not technical, maybe thinking about like integrations, talking to other partners. You start to see like what are the actual problems in this space, and are almost forced to understand the tech if you want to, like, if you want to, let's say, like differentiate your product, if you're dealing with a bug, for example, etc. But I just want to really emphasize, like, I think picking some part of crypto you think is quite interesting, and then maybe some problem within it, and start working at that problem is probably one of the best ways to learn and to get almost become an expert in that small niche.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing also to that point. Like, one of the cool things about crypto is almost everything is open source. So I would definitely contribute to things, and not just code, also like operations, right? A lot of these DAOs and protocols, like you can join their essentially core group of community members that run the organization to a large extent permissionlessly at any age, like with no real credentials, and just by putting in the work, start to be really involved and engaged. My favorite example of this is Shreyas, the founder of Llama, was like living in India, hadn't gone to college, was 18, and just started doing treasury management for Aave. Just joined that DAO very early on, and that like led to Llama, which is now a treasury management DAO that raised a lot of money from founders fund and a lot of great investors. And it just goes to show that just you can just like start contributing, and that history of the work you're doing is open for everybody else to see. So then when you ultimately go and try to find a job, try to raise money, try to start your own thing, you'll have this history of contributing to the space in one form or another. And that will start to really establish yourself from a legitimacy standpoint, but also give you that expertise, and you'll find those holes and those challenges that Alex was touching on. So I think that's a great idea.
All great points. And now moving on from kind of your experiences at Columbia, and what you found has been really useful during a bear market. What are you excited about now? And what are you excited about I know it's impossible to predict what's going to be happening in crypto. But if you can, could you say what you're excited about in the next 6 months, 2 years, and even 5-year timelines?
Yeah, definitely. I think both in the short and the medium term, I'm extremely excited about the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, and the network effects around that. It's kind of a boring answer, but I think in a world where we constantly have new layer ones coming up and sort of challenges to Ethereum, and so on, which I think will definitely happen again next cycle, and something for people to watch. I'm a big believer that the network effects around EVM are where the space is going to go, and that doesn't necessarily mean it will happen on the Ethereum blockchain, but an EVM compatible chain in one form or another seems to be where things are headed. With that, I would say I'm also very interested in ZK, so zero knowledge, in one form or another. We have a lot of challenges in crypto around it being kind of too transparent. We've also seen some pushback around sort of privacy preserving and privacy protocols of various kinds. But they're really critical to the space. I think we don't want to live in a future where everyone can see all of your bank statements. So we're going to need something that's more shielded. And with that comes a very interesting component of Web3, which is being able to kind of prove that certain things have happened without seeing them themselves. And we're going to have this kind of future that's very kind of private but composable. And I find that to be very compelling. We're not fully sure exactly how that will play out. I think one will certainly be reputation. So imagine your credentials being something that you can prove without doxing yourself or showing your core identity. And another might just be sort of communication, content, sort of various forms of media, IP, and so on that I think are quite compelling.
Yeah, on Nir's note of EVM blockchains, I like to say that I'm really excited about like new scaling solutions in general. There's a lot of new layer 2s on Ethereum, from zero knowledge rollups, optimistic rollups, and also like just new blockchain in general. I know that like Aptos and Sui are coming out, and they have like a lot of really cutting edge tech around like consensus and around like mempools. And it's interesting to see blockchains come from like a totally first principles perspective, like how do we build the best possible blockchain? But then we're also seeing that compete with the EVM and the network effects that the EVM has, as well as the really exciting like scaling solutions that are coming out, and they're finally making transactions cheap enough and fast enough that we can start to actually abstract away the experience of a blockchain. I think on a longer time horizon, what I'm really excited about, and this is going to be like really vague, is the applications that exist because of blockchain, but blockchain isn't actually like really in your face, because blockchain applications are really in your face about like using crypto right now, because they have to be, because you have to download MetaMask before using it, because you have to figure out how to actually get the tokens into your wallet. And I think what is really exciting about blockchain and what will be really revolutionary about it are the applications that use blockchain because of the benefits of them, but they aren't actually in your face about it. And actually using blockchain is just like a side effect, like what they need to do to actually capture that. And I wish I could be like more specific about like what these would look like, but I mean, if I was, then I'd have a huge amount of alpha, and I wouldn't probably talk about it on the panel either. But I mean, there's a lot of things I think you can do with just tokens and with value that's native to the internet that you could never be previously done before. And I think what Nir talked about with like reputation and with just like digital credentials in general, and like what he's building at Yup is really exciting, and like shows a path towards like Web3 social that I think is going to be really big in a couple of years.
Yeah, to add to that, I think user adoption is huge. It's been what's driving the growth of the technology since its inception. The next 6 months to 2 years, I think, provides a very unique opportunity for blockchain technology in general, where we're not only going to have the public knowledge of what blockchain is, but we're also going to have the infrastructure that can finally support the mass onboarding events that we can expect. And I think in a 6 months to 2 year period, we can expect those infrastructures to, mature and allow the volume to move on. But from there, I think looking at the closer to 5 year period, and this might be funny, and please make fun of me for this, but I'm excited for regulation. I'm excited for a regulatory framework to establish means by which we can actually adopt the benefits of this technology. And that's something that we've shied away from and avoided, but I think we're at that precipice now where it's ultimately going to benefit the advancement of the technological stack.
Yeah, I think probably in the short term, kind of similar to what Nir was saying, I think, look, seeing the development of zero knowledge tech, but actually using it for its privacy benefits, as opposed to a lot of the succinctness that you might see for the kind of like ZK rollups that some people might be familiar with. I think privacy is kind of, obviously it's been a little tumultuous recently, but it's still being relatively underrated inside the crypto space, particularly with how we can actually use like ZK tech for one of its initial purposes. So excited to see that become more prevalent of not only an issue, but also one, I think probably within that timeline, we should see a little more maturity where developers can actually start interacting with these protocols without having to hand tune a circuit or spend like months to years and creating these sort of like custom logic around incorporating privacy into their applications. And then probably long term, really echoing kind of what other people are saying. I hope we get to a point where enough like crypto and blockchain is abstracted away, where we actually start to see real kind of consumer applications that are not just like Ponzi-nomic fueled things. I mean, there are a lot of, I think, positive aspects of crypto with respect to kind of personal, I think, sovereignty of wealth, like sovereignty of identity, sort of along those lines, that where like the user reaps all the benefits without having to deal with some of the quirks of crypto.
Before we jump into questions, Sam, you mentioned alpha. We don't want to give away too much, but if you could offer one piece of alpha or advice, short bet, could each of you do that?
I think that's a really tough question.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot.
I had prepared for this a little bit, but
You could cop out the slide. I mean, slide all the alphas there.
yeah, I could get all on slide. I think that I guess before I'll do that, one thing that just came to mind is that one things that people can do that I don't think people do enough is actually look to like who are the smartest people on different topics. There's a lot of people that will like post like Twitter threads on like different topics. There's a lot of people that like post articles on different topics, and like while a lot of that is like good content, one thing that you don't actually know is like if it's good content, where like some of it is, some of it isn't, and you don't want to learn from the person that just read out for like 5 minutes on zero knowledge rollups and now is posting a Twitter thread on it. You want to learn about zero knowledge rollups from the person that is actually building it and is the actual like expert in the space. I guess to kind of show Slide a little bit, as Noel mentioned, really excited obviously about what we're doing. And it's been really cool to see like applications excited about using us to kind of touch on like what we are building. We're building a really simple to use SDK that any developer can include in their application to make the entire experience of like using crypto for their users really effortless. So there's kind of three pieces to what we're building. It needs to be really easy for users to get money in and out of crypto. Once you have money in crypto, it needs to be out like this super simple to use wallet. You can't have any extensions that need to download or like apps that people need to download as wallet. It needs to just be like logging with Google and then we spin up your wallet under the hood. It's completely non-custodial. Some technology that we're really excited about. And then the third part is it needs to be really easy to like interact with applications, to send transactions, to bridge between different blockchains. One thing that is super confusing for new users to crypto is that they'll buy USDC on Coinbase, they'll then set up MetaMask, and then they'll send USDC to their MetaMask wallet so they can buy an NFT or whatever it is. And at this point, they discovered, oh, I also need ETH to be able to pay for their transaction fee. And that's super confusing. There's analog and like traditional like financial applications to needing a token to actually pay for transaction fees. And then it gets even worse if the application that they're building on isn't Ethereum and isn't supported by Coinbase. That then need to figure out how to bridge to Polygon or Optimism or Arbitrum to actually use this application. So now they have ETH in their wallet. They are able to use a bridging application to bridge onto the blockchain. And now they get USDC onto Polygon. And then on Polygon, they discovered that they also need Matic on that blockchain to pay for the transaction fees. So like the process right now of using crypto allocations is this super convoluted 10-step process that a lot of us go through and put up with because we are used to it at this point and we've gone through that really big learning curve. But what we're building is we're building a bunch of technology that actually extract that away. So every part of the user experience is really effortless. And we're selling that technology to applications that we're working with who are then providing that user experience to their end users.
Yeah, amazing. I want to touch on a few things. One is like super contrarian, but has been in conversations I've had with really smart people over the last, like I say, month or two, is that I think the next 12 months, AI will move at a massive pace, much faster than crypto, and where the two merge is quite compelling as well. And so, if you're very interested about where the world is trending, I would definitely watch AI very closely. There's a few giant rounds that are about to be announced and a few big players that are entering the space around AI, particularly generative AI, which I'm sure you've all seen, has like really caught on over the last 12 months. So I would definitely pay attention to that.